If your alcohol ink art is coming out muddy or blotchy and you can't figure out why, I want you to know it's not you. It's almost always one of two things. Once you know what they are, you won't be making these mistakes again. Hi, I'm Marlis. I'm an artist, a creative entrepreneur, and a former engineer who one day decided to make art my whole life. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing 2 reasons of why your alcohol ink art might look muddy or blotchy and exactly what to do to fix it. So the first reason is simply too much ink. And I know this might sound obvious, but it's something that comes up over and over again, where there's just too much ink on the surface and you're moving it around with your heat gun and the isopropyl alcohol starts to evaporate, but there's too much ink on the surface and it just gets really blotchy and creates this really weird kind of texture. Here's what you should try instead. Start with just a couple drops of ink in your isopropyl alcohol, and you can literally just start with 1 drop of ink to 2 tablespoons worth of isopropyl alcohol. And mind you, this needs to be 91% or higher, and start there. So a little bit goes a long way, and you want to start with less versus more. Then from there, you can test the consistency and see how you go. I don't usually provide specific measurements because it's not like you're sitting there measuring things with a scale or even with a measuring cup. When you use resin, on the other hand, it's a very different story. You need to measure things, and measuring is super important. But with alcohol inks, it is one of those things that you just get a feel for it. If you want just a lighter gradient, you'll just go with less ink to isopropyl alcohol ratio. If you want something a bit more pigmented and just deeper, you'll add more ink to isopropyl alcohol ratio. But that's the thing, it's just you have to get the feel for it. If you just feel like it's getting too blotchy, then just add more isopropyl alcohol. In my full course, I walk you through this particular process and what it actually looks like and how much ink to alcohol ratio. You just see it and you can go with the feel for it. But to be honest, the principle is simple. It's just less is more. The ink is doing its work, you're just guiding it, so you don't want to add too much. It's really the takeaway. The second reason is just too many colors are mixing together. And this is where a little bit of color theory goes a long way. So here's my tip. When you're starting out, just use 1 color. That's right. Just 1. This lets you focus completely on the whole learning process on how to actually manipulate the pools of ink and get the wispy lines or the beautiful gradients that you desire. Once you've progressed and you've mastered the medium a little bit more, then you can start to add in more colors. When you're ready to bring in more colors, here's what you need to know. Color theory at its most basic is this. Yellow and blue make green, red and yellow make orange. You already know this, but this rule will save your paintings. Green and red make brown. So unless you are actually trying to make brown, you want to keep green and red far from each other, because if they mix, they're gonna make brown. And that's essentially what looks quote unquote muddy. Warm colors are your red, orange, and yellow, and your cool colors are your blue and your greens and your purples. Now, anytime those mix together, it is potentially going to create something that could be muddy. Now, everything in proportion, and you can obviously play with this, and there's tons of videos out there that talk specifically about color theory because there's so much to it. But at its most basic level, I would recommend sticking with cool colors, especially when you're starting off, which is why you'll notice a lot of people also stay in the blues and the greens area. So yeah, when you are ready to up your game and you're like, I want to try a bunch of different colors and have a party on your wood panel, I would suggest be mindful of where your pools of color are mixing, and when they do mix, to make sure that you know that when they do, they will create a really fun color and whatever you actually want to make, versus you go in with too many colors and then they all mix together and it just looks like mud. And the other thing that you could potentially do, and I see a lot of beautiful alcohol ink paintings like this, where you have 1 wispy section of a warm color and then another wispy section of a cool color, but they don't exactly touch, or maybe they just gently touch or meet in the middle, but they're not like totally blending together and creating this massive gradient where then the colors mix. So just make sure that they have their own areas on your panel. Keep it simple, start with 1, and then you can build your way up to 2 to 3 and pick ones that are simple and you know that they will get along really well together, and you're set up for success. I've been creating art for what feels 20 something years, and now at this point, color theory is just a natural thing that has just built into my programming at this point. So I don't think too much about it, but it is something that subconsciously I just know that I'm doing when I'm selecting colors and things like that. But if you're starting out as a beginner, it's something that you might want to spend a little bit more time, not just randomly picking colors that will not support your painting and your creation process. If you are a beginner, I have created a free starter kit that has everything from supplies to a mini project that you can follow step by step to get started on your own. And if you'd like a little bit more detail into how to actually create your first ever alcohol ink on wood painting, I've created a course that walks you through all of these details, and in real time you can see how I am mixing the inks with the isopropyl alcohol, how I'm priming the board, and in 60 minutes you will know exactly how to do it yourself. Save this video and come back to it when you are ready to set up your first alcohol ink palette, and I'll see you in the next one.